One of the most important muscles that you need to learn to engage to help you build stability, strength, and power in the lower body are the hamstring muscles. These muscles sit on the back of the thigh, and the reason why they're so important is because they attach on the ischial tuberosity, which is your sit bone on the back of your pelvis, and behind the knee on the tibia and fibula. You have three heads of this muscle, and the job of this muscle is to posteriorly tilt the pelvis back when the hamstrings shorten and engage, and anteriorly tip the pelvis forward when they lengthen. Other jobs of the hamstring are to help you bend and flex the knee and aid in hip extension. Now the problem is when that pelvis goes forward in an anteriorly tipped position and those hamstrings are chronically in a long position, they're not going to really be able to stabilize the pelvis the way you'd want to. This can cause issues at the knee, issues at the hip, issues at the foot, can cause low back pain because now it's going to force that lumbar spine to be in excessive lordosis. When we engage the hamstrings, we want to engage them in a shortened position more times or not. This is going to help you get more in a posteriorly tilted position. This is going to help you stabilize the pelvis and the knee and truly strengthen the hamstrings. When our back is on the ground or a supine position, you want to think big toe, little toe, heel, tripod of the foot, and feel like you're pulling that heel back towards your butt isometrically. So you're not just bringing your foot back, you feel like you're pulling that heel back to the butt, and you should feel that hamstring engage or shorten. That muscle should be really tight on the back of your knee. You also want to make sure you have a slight posterior tilt. So you want to make sure that your back isn't coming off the ground. You want to make sure that belly button's drawn in. You're going to perform a slight posterior tilt of the pelvis. So that pelvis is going underneath you. And from there, you're pulling that heel back. You should really feel those hamstrings engage in this position. Even when we go into a quadruped or all four position, we still should be able to feel the hamstrings, or at least have them engaged. Even if your foot's not in that tripod position, you still should be able to get the hamstrings on with a posterior tilt. So you get those proximal hamstrings to engage. So you want to make sure that belly button's drawn in and you can feel on the back of your thigh if those hamstring muscles are tight and engaged. If not, you want to make sure you reset, your nose is over your fingertips, belly button's drawn in, and you're going to perform a slight posterior tilt of the pelvis, making sure you're not just rounding through your back. To feel the hamstrings in a half kneeling position, you want to get extension through the back glute. You'll feel a big stretch in the front of the thigh. Get a short foot tripod with that front foot and just pull that heel back into the mat, and you'll engage the hamstring in a half kneeling position. That will keep you stable in this position. And finally, to find those hamstrings in a standing position, we're going to go in a split stance position. So this is just to help you find the hamstrings. You don't necessarily need to only be in a split stance position to engage them. Even if you're doing a bilateral deadlift or bilateral squat, you still should be able to engage the hamstrings. So you're going to find that short foot, base your big toe, little toe, heel, and pull that heel back into the floor. And you should feel the back of the thigh or your hamstrings engage in a shortened position. You want to make sure that pelvis is tilted underneath you in a slight posterior tilt. Again, we're not just rounding the back, a slight posterior tilt without spinal flexion necessarily. If you can't find the hamstring, if you're having trouble sensing it, then you can do a little push-pull. So with the front foot, you can push forward, and the back foot, you can pull back. So you're trying to tear the ground apart, and this should really help you engage the hamstrings on both legs.